Shall we, distinguished delegates, shall we take our seats so that we can get started? Thank you. Good morning. I haven't heard a response. Good morning, distinguished delegates. It's wonderful to see you all here today on the third day of our of our UN Habitat Assembly. My name is Christine Musisi. I am the Director for External Relations for UN Habitat. It's really my honor to welcome you, distinguished delegates, to this third day and high-level segment of the first ever UN Habitat Assembly. Our focus today will be on the theme of the Assembly, which is innovation for a better quality of life in cities and communities. This will be through an interactive strategic dialogue that will go on throughout this day. We expect to draw on the vast experiences of innovation that transform the way we live, the way we work in cities and communities, and the way we actually enjoy our living spaces and human settlements. So the dialogue today is intended to highlight the knowledge and best practices that will help accelerate implementation of the new urban agenda towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So this morning, we will have some interactive activities before the esteemed heads of state, the President of the UN Habitat Assembly, and also the UN Habitat Executive Director arrive for the high-level dialogue. This high-level session will run for 2 hours, hopefully until 11:30. We will have a choir with us that will take us through this session. But we will have a few series of activities that we hope you will enjoy as we wait for our high-level delegates to arrive. First, we will have a brief description of the UN Habitat strategic plan, especially the 4 domains of change. We will have a poll on innovative proposals for innovative initiatives moderated by our colleagues. I will introduce them as we move ahead. I would like you to look at the screen, hopefully the instructions for that Mentimeter, what we call a Mentimeter, are there. I encourage you right now to go to follow those instructions, because we will have a poll, an interactive poll with you to review innovative activities for change in cities and communities. We've had an Innovate for Change campaign over the last month, and we would like you to decide which are the best innovations. So our colleague, Claudio Acchioli, will take you through that. We will also be introducing to you the graffiti wall, which is behind me here, which has been designed by young women artists. And our colleague, Douglas Reagan will take you through that. So as we move forward, I think the choir is not ready. I don't see them here yet. So in that regard, I will ask, yes? 30 seconds for the choir to come, who will give us some activities before we invite our colleague, Pacom Kosi, who's a senior advisor to the executive director, to take us through the 4 domains of change of the strategic plan. So we invite our choir, United Nations choir. You will hear the beautiful voices of the United Nations this morning. Over to you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Distinguished delegates, did you like the sound of the United Nations? Did you? Thank you. Thank you very much for your appreciation. Thank you very much, UN Choir. It is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Pacom Kosi, who is the Strategic Advisor to the Executive Director, to introduce the new strategic plan of UN Habitat and the 4 domains of change. Pacom, you're welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Christine. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Great. Is everyone logged in for the next exercise? Are you already logged in? Yes? Please do log in for the next exercise. As Christine said, my name is Pacom Kosi, and I'm the Senior Strategic Advisor to the ED of UN Habitat. I led the preparation of the next strategic plan 2020-2025. So my task this morning is to briefly present what we call the domains of change or the goals for the next strategic plan. At the beginning of this exercise, preparing the plan, which started in April of 2018, we came up with a new vision statement for UN Habitat, a better quality of life for all in an urbanizing world. After agreeing on a vision, we did ask ourselves this question: how do you make it happen? How do you make it happen in a way that is different and in a way that enables us to achieve impact everywhere habitat is present? We therefore came up with an objective for the plan. Sustainable urbanization is advanced as a driver for development peace to improve living conditions for all. After that, we had to come up with goals for the new plan or impact for the new plan. And the first one we came up with, it's in orange color, is about reducing inequality and poverty in communities and cities across the urban-rural continuum. Why this? This is there because, as you know, the issues of poverty, inequality, unemployment are more and more concentrated in cities. Therefore, if we're going to have an impact in the next cycle of the plan, it's very important that our efforts are geared toward reducing poverty and inequality in cities. And we're going to achieve this goal or domain of change by doing work on basic services, energy, water, sanitation, but also mobility in public space, doing work on housing issues, but also urban growth and regeneration. The second domain of change, in yellow color on the screen, it's about enhancing shared prosperity of cities and regions. Why? Why is it there? Because we realized as we were doing research and as we were discussing the impact of the agency that the most prosperous cities are usually in the most prosperous regions. Therefore, we think by connecting cities and making them to work together in a system of cities, we can also achieve impact at scale. So the second domain of change in yellow on the screen will be achieved by Habitat doing work on connectivity and productivity, but also by enhancing locally generated revenues. And a new area of work for us, it's on expanded frontier technologies and innovations. We believe that we need to continue innovating in the work that we do in order to again, achieve impact at scale. The third domain of change in green color on the screen, it's about strengthen climate action and improve urban environment. This was a pretty straightforward one because just like poverty and inequality, the issues of climate change are affecting cities to the extent that today we see cyclones, we see flooding everywhere in our cities and communities. Therefore, for UN Habitat to achieve impact in an integrated manner, it was very important that we focus some of our work on the issues of climate change, but also improve urban environment. The way we intend to achieve this goal of this domain of change is by doing work on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving urban air quality, by improving resource efficiency, but also protecting ecological assets. And lastly, doing some work on climate change adaptation of communities and infrastructure to climate change. The last domain of change in blue color on the screen, it's about effective urban crisis and prevention and response. Why is it here? Because again, just like the first three domains, issues of crisis, the issues related to migration and displaced persons are happening more and more in cities. Okay? It's therefore very important that we bring our work together. The four domains of change all goes together in order to achieve impact at scale. We intend to work on this goal or domain of change by enhancing social integration and inclusive communities everywhere we are present, by improving living standard and inclusion of migrant and refugees and internally displaced persons, and finally, by enhancing resilience of the built environment and infrastructure. So these are the four domains of change that are presented here. You have the whole strategic plan online. You also have this pamphlet in your bags. But before I end, let me just say that these four domains have in them all the work we do on human rights, gender, women, children, youth, older persons, and persons with disabilities. The social inclusion issues are very much part of the work that we do, and unless we focus on this human dimension, you will agree with me, it's going to be difficult for us to achieve impact. Okay, this is it for now. We're happy to take questions online, by email, if you have any. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Pacom. That is our strategic plan, and you will find that leaflet in your bags, which gives you the comprehensive information about this plan. Distinguished delegates, allow me also to take you back to the screen on the instructions for an exercise that we are going to do. It's a Mentimeter. We've had a whole month of a campaign which we call Innovate for Change, where we have invited different people all over the world to introduce very short videos on what they've done to innovate for change. And our colleague, Mr. Akioli, will be coming here to take you through that exercise so that together we can decide which is the best or which are the best innovations. So please allow me to introduce and to welcome Mr. Claudio Akioli to the stage to take you through this exercise. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just warm up with some of your views. What we're going to do now is, first thing, I would like you to use your electronic device, iPad, iPhone, laptop, whatever device you have in your hand. Log in on www.menti.com and type the code 563070. So www.menti.com and then type the code 563070. We're giving you a couple of seconds to do that. We're going to show you 9 project ideas that have been sent from all over the world, suggesting that these are innovative, impactful projects. And what we would like to do now is to have your opinion about these projects. So we will show you, before you vote, a 30-second video about each project, and then you will vote on 2 sessions. One, the level of success, and second, what is the likelihood that it will really impact positively on people's life. Okay? So www.menti.com and type the code 563070. Next slide, please. So the hearts on the... So we would like to know what is the gender parity in the room. Let's see how actually we practice gender equality or parity. We see here male participants dominating, 38, 39. Come on, ladies, let's show that we are here in numbers. Oh, what happened? Colleagues. Hey, colleagues. Colleagues there. You're changing my screen. Hey. Thank you. Keep it like that. Okay, 160 people. Some more people voting? Yes. Come on, ladies, let's get 50-50. 130, 32. We are nearly on parity in the room. We have more than 139 people here. I once ran in a forum, 1,200 people, and we had exactly parity, men and women. It was very nice. And it was in Latin America, which gives a very peculiar result. 151. Should we go? People are voting. I'll give you a couple of seconds until everybody register your vote there. We're getting more people excited here. This is a tool we use in our capacity building programs, in our public consultations, policy dialogue, to involve people who are in the room but do not have the ability, or they do not like to speak their opinions so clearly, so we get everybody involved by doing a poll like that. So 171, so it's a good number, but I think we have much more than 171 people here in the room. And people continue to vote. As you continue to vote, we go to the next slide. Next slide, please. So where do we come from in this room? How representative are we in this room? Aha. Hello, hello. So, a regional balance, Asia, big population, but not equally represented. Here we are in Africa, and we having big numbers from Africa. So, and we have North America, Latin America, Arab states, Europe, and big numbers from Africa. Okay, so as you continue voting where you come from, we go for the next one. We want to know, what are the stakeholders represented here? Are you from national, provincial, NGO, universities, UN agencies, other. Okay, so we have a very significant national government representation in the room, provincial government, not so much, universities and NGOs, and we have UN agencies. It is a good representation, perhaps a little bit more of provincial governments will give us a very good flavor in the room. So we're reaching numbers, the number of respondents are increasing, so we hope that when we vote now for the projects that we get maximum number of opinions about that. So let's go to the next slide. So now you will vote, and I will drive you through the voting. Next slide. So this is the project we're going to vote. It's called the active listening, and we'll show you a 30-second video, and we come back for your vote. Let's show the video, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Gerald and I'm currently training to become an urban planner in the City of London. I hope to encourage spatial equality and to produce effective urban solutions by helping planners and politicians listen and respond to the multifarious voices of the city. My idea is to utilize sentiment analysis and machine learning into public consultation. This will help us to get from data to insights much more quickly and efficiently, allowing us to incorporate the demands and needs of the city into our designs and plans.
Okay, so now your vote. Next slide. How do you assess the chance of success of this project? So you move in your phone from 0 to 10 where you can put your vote. The shadow that you see there is where the majorities of the voting seems to go regarding this project. So we are around the 5 in terms of chance of success. Now what we're going to do after your voting, the projects that get the highest number of votes, we will review them more carefully, taking into account your recommendations, and we're going to review this in the World Urban Forum in February in Abu Dhabi. So we'll have to do some homework after you do your homework here. And we appreciate very much your engagement and your participation, seriously. So perhaps we'll get 200 votes. You can continue voting. Let's go to the next slide. Regarding the same project, what is the positive impact on people's life that you think this project could have? From 1 to 10. I'm very happy that you're voting very quickly. So the quickly we vote, the quickly we finish this round. Very nice. Already 160 votes, pretty good. And it seems the audience is a bit in the halfway about this project. Right. As you continue voting, let me go to the next one. So we're going to go now for the project Innovate Space. Please, let's show the video.
My name is Eric from Nairobi, and my idea is called Technovate. So Technovate is a youth space, a space which brings the youth together to share the opportunities that are available in the country, to leverage on each other's skills, talents, and gifts so that they can come up with projects. The idea is very scalable because all you need is to equip, to find a space, and then you equip it with the relevant equipments like computers, and then make it youthful so that when the youth interact with the space, they are able to come up with different ideas and work on projects together by sharing what they have with others, and then challenging themselves to come up with even better platforms.
Right, thank you. So now, your opinion. So what's the chance of success of this project from 0 to 10? Well done, you're going very quick on your voting. Very good. $150. So as we reach the 160, we'll move as you continue voting to the next. So your voting ends when you submit your judgment. All right, so we go to the impact of people's life. Well done. You're a good audience. You're voting confident and firmly on your options. So when we reach the 150, 56, we'll go to the next one on the interest of time. So the likelihood that we will have to stop the session is high to continue the program, and we probably will continue later on. Yeah, okay. So let's move to the next one. The project is called Core Maps. So let's show the video quickly. 30
My name is
seconds
Francis
video.
Gasconia. I'm from Taguig City, Philippines. I'm currently in Phnom Penh, Cambodia for Project CoMap. Its purpose is a mapping and training program for young professionals and volunteers with skills in mapping for sustainability using free and open source software, which makes it innovative, and combining it with participatory approaches in field mapping and 3D drone mapping. You can scale this project via web platform and on-the-ground training.
Okay, let's vote. What's the chance of success? Ooh, I see here the audience is voting towards higher numbers here. So as we reach the 150, we can move to the next as others can continue recording their opinion. All right. Few more votes. Okay. Let's continue. Now the chance of success, positive impact on people's life. That's very interesting. The mapping and the technology with drums helping us to get a sense of reality is really getting you on your higher expectation. Very nice. Good to hear that. As you see, the shadow there is where the audience is in terms of their voting. Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next project. That's Nisim, and let's see the video.
Nissim is a startup aiming to eliminate renting apartments by creating a global network of rent-to-own properties. Most other companies share the down payment with tenants to settle down in a suburban area. We offer mobility to leave your neighborhood, take your equity to another city or country. 1/3 of the people around the world are wasting 1/4 to 1/2 their income just on rent, which most likely will enter an offshore account somewhere instead of being reinvested into the local economy. Rent can be reduced by 30% with public-private partnerships, corporate social responsibility, and go towards crowdfunding sustainable development.
Right. Now back to you. So next slide, your chance of success. Thank you for your active participation and sharing with us your views. This is the most way of being inclusive with you as an audience. Okay, couple of more slides, couple of more votes, and we move to the next one. All right, on people's life, what do you think the impact this project will have? I can see the trend in the shadow. That's the number that you see in black is the average of all the votes that are being casted here. But the shadow gives you an idea where the votes are. So we have two big hills, one very high and one in the middle. As we reach 130, we'll move to the next one and you can continue your voting. All right, so let's go to the next project. Blockchain to plan urban growth. That's where you're voting. A video, please. 30 seconds video.
Para planear el crecimiento urbano. Mi nombre es Antonio Tempa Tuxpan, soy de México, de la ciudad de Tlaxcala. El crecimiento descontrolado de la mancha urbana, provocado por la corrupción en el otorgamiento de las licencias de uso de suelo, puede ser regulado mediante el uso de tecnología como blockchain, mediante el cual la centralización de la información permite la seguridad transaccional, el control social, promueve la transparencia y anticorrupción, genera el ordenamiento territorial y el empoderamiento ciudadano. La innovación de esta idea radica en el uso de tecnología cívica combinada con el gobierno para la toma de decisiones. Al tener un punto de partida tecnológico, cualquier ciudad en el mundo puede retomar el esquema, adaptar a sus condiciones locales e implementar. Gracias.
Okay, let's vote now. Your views on this one, blockchain. The hill is moving towards above 5. So we see a pretty good average, some high score there. Pretty good. Interesting that blockchain is getting pretty good acceptance amongst yourself. All right. So let's, as you vote, we move to the next one. So what is the likelihood of positive impact on people's life? Your voting is indicating that as an audience you see these technology innovations and advancement in the way we deal with information for decision making, for improving the quality of decision is important for you. So you're giving, the shadow is telling me that a lot of votes in the very high end of the scale. And this is a very good thing. So we're now going to make a stop before we go to the next project. And I thank you very much for your voting and engagement. And I give the floor now to my colleague, Christine Musisi. Thank you.
Can we give an applause to Claudio? You've done a great job. Now, We will continue with this exercise afterwards to see which are the best projects that have the likelihood to succeed and which ones have a better impact, a real impact on people's lives. Now, distinguished delegates, allow me to introduce my colleague, Douglas Reagan. He's the head of the youth unit. He's a very, very young person in UN Habitat, who will introduce this beautiful graffiti wall behind me that has been prepared by young women artists. I really would like the women in the room to clap, because this is really great to see young women and a young man do this. Please welcome Douglas Reagan.
Sorry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you very much. The beginning of the conference, someone said, buildings are buildings, but people make the city. And that's really, I think, what we're here about, because when we're looking at how cities are built, sometimes we see walls and we see roads and we see buildings, but we miss that the people are really part of it. So in this project that we did, it's called Graffiti Girls. Graffiti Girls is an organization here in Nairobi. We brought 8 girls together at an event that was held just on the weekend. And it was held at one of the youth centers that we work with, which is generously funded by the government of Norway, who's supported us for the last 10 years in engaging young people. And these young women came together and they did this beautiful mural. So I'll give you their names. Well, there's Cynthia and Cynthia, 2 Cynthias. There's Dinah, Maiva. Maiva's not there, she's over there. Ashley, Ripa, and Paul, who's the person who's training. Again, I think what we really try to do here is we really try to engage young people to think positively about their cities and to represent it. I think it's really important to kind of give you some background of where this is. A report that was just done by CityLab has found that cities are undergoing what they're calling a demographic youthification. You only need to walk out the back door here in Nairobi, where 70% of the population is under the age of 30. So when you're looking at that, these young people are coming to cities for many, many reasons. They're coming to start their families. They're coming for education. They're coming for jobs. But oftentimes what we forget and what we don't measure and we don't recognize is they're also coming because of the culture in the city. Urban culture is really important. It's a really important way that it brings together people. It cuts across lines. It makes the rich and the poor work together. It makes people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, different languages, different regional groups. Cities are kind of that melting pot, and the melting pot, or the glue that makes this work, is culture. And so when we're looking forward from UN Habitat, and we're so proud in the upcoming World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi that culture will be one of the main focuses of the World Urban Forum. And we as UN Habitat are going to be really looking at what that means. Not just saying culture is a song and dance and a dress, but what does culture mean to urbanity, to sustainability? So this project here represents this. And so maybe I'd like just really quickly one of the girls to kind of explain the mural quick and which SDG it links to. Is that possible? Sure.
Hi, so from the mural which we did, it's talking about clean energy and the safe cities.
And when you walk out the door, you're going to see another mural which is on transportation. Again, we get young people to kind of bring in the SDGs to life. We all know that back in Action 21 days, if you can think back that way, the localization of this agenda is really critical. And the localization of SDGs and the understanding of young people, again, especially in the global south, young people who are driving this agenda. So when you go out, I'd like you to take a look as we go by. We're also going to be really honored to have the presidents that are going to, the excellencies here that are going to be on the stage to sign this mural, and it'll become a permanent, something permanent here at UN Habitat. So anyways, what I'd like to do is to quickly show the video that was done of this project, and then we can end.
called Ablaze, where we bring in young people from all over Nairobi, all over Kenya. As you can see over here, we do graffiti, we do spoken word, we do poetry, we do hip hop, break dancing, all the creative arts from the urban.
We're painting a mural on SDGs, and the project is important because the girls are painting it. So we're trying more to make people aware of climate change, clean energy. Graffiti puts more emphasis on that.
Well, the project is about sustainable development growth. For a graffiti female artist, we are like the voice of women, through art. I feel good about it. It's good. And then we rarely get chances to showcase our art. So a day like this is like a good day.
We're so thankful for the UN Habitat, for all the supporting creative arts. All the young people are coming out now.
Thank you very much. Please come by the youth tent to see the rest of the boards and outside, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Douglas. I think we would like to introduce some videos on innovation. The first one is the UN Chief Executive Board, their views on innovation. And the second will be voices around the world. So over to you, colleagues, on the videos. Thank you.
Without innovation, there is no way we can overcome the challenges of our time.
Innovation starts with people.
Creating the space to think, fail, try, and try again.
A safe environment where collaboration can bear fruit.
I'm excited to see bold and revolutionary innovations.
I'm most excited about this digital finance.
Innovation in rural communities.
Data innovations.
Technology to draw insights from public data.
We are introducing artificial intelligence,
blockchain technology, biometrics,
and many other amazing technologies.
Innovation is not only about creating new things.
Not only about technology.
It's about doing things differently.
Technical and management innovation are critical.
We experiment new working methods
for a just and human-centered future.
Innovation today has the power to help or harm.
We need bold and innovative solutions
while respecting the planet's limits.
We test and share innovative responses to challenges.
To strengthen coordination and coherence.
Invite others to follow.
To find new ways to engage young people.
To strike smart partnerships. Inculcate a culture of innovation in our governing body.
I'm passionate about innovation.
Innovation is a part of journey
for accelerated implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals.
We have built 2 8-story buildings, totally out of timber.
We are building the world's first.
ShortLife provides access to sustainable transportation through shared mobility.
This solution provides a very innovative way that we can have impact, create employment, and reduce pollution.
And we are building a platform that enables a grassroots approach to urban transformation.
And this 3D house comprises all the knowledge of the UN organizations to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals.
Start to grow our future cities, just like we grow our food.
100% of our energy completely renewable.
We believe that one of the strongest points of the project is that it fosters civic engagement.
Providing data in the hands of women really enhances their ability to move about the city freely and without fear.
With one bus,
we can remove about 14 to 29 cars of those.
So this project gives us about 2,000 liters a day of recycled water.
Specialization contributes to the study of urbanism.
I hope that we can inspire many people to join us.
Thank you very much. Could we ask? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Could we ask the choir to give us a number? For those who were not here in the beginning, this is the United Nations choir, and just so that you know that United Nations also has sweet voices. Thank you. Over to you. Thank you very much. Please, I think they deserve a little bit more, no? Thank you. Thank you very much. Distinguished delegates, I hope that you enjoyed the exercise. We want to continue that exercise for a little while, the Mentimeter, to see which projects are more successful. I will hand over to Claudio. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 projects, so it will take us about a minute and a half maximum 2 minutes to see your view. This is the project that we're going to have your poll. Those who arrived late, you can vote, log in and vote, but you will be running behind the vote. So go back to your device, and we are in the www.menti.com, and the code is 563070. And so www.menti.com, and the code is 563070. So we're going to run for the next project. Please, the video of the project Biocultural Corridor. It's a 30 seconds video.
Hi, our idea is to develop a project about active mobility that attach 13 points with a great cultural, environmental, and biological value by using tactical urbanism. Something innovative is that it takes the principle of recreational cycleways, bringing cultural activities and motivating the people to use the bike without affecting the daily transit of other means of transport. This project is scalable because it's generated by civil society, and it guarantees the solution of a specific problems that have priority depending the community. If something doesn't work, you can improve it.
All right, so now your opinion. Next slide. So what are the chances of success? I can see from the shadow that the voters are scoring very high with an average 6. So it's clearly above the 5 and 6. And we have some votes very high. As we wait, we take the time now to grab your opinion while we're waiting for all the authorities to arrive. And if we get the message, we cut short the poll and move on. Okay, while you continue voting, let's go to the next slide. So now is about the impact on people's life. Your views on that project. So you as an audience is seeing this project with much higher impact on people's life in terms of positive impact. With an average of 6.4, your shadow behind is showing consistent voting on the 6 to 8, and that's a pretty good scoring you're giving to this project. Let me wait a couple of votes, and then we move on to the next one. As I explained to you in the beginning, we will take the results of your views on these projects. We'll do some homework on further analysis and make a public presentation during World Urban Forum in February in Abu Dhabi, where we will unfold the projects that got the highest chance of success. Okay, let's move to the next one. Project Okoyo, POC. 30 seconds video.
Hello, my name is Humberto Mota, and I am from Ocoyoacac, where the urban expansion is not regulated, adding also pollution to the Lerma River. However, the solution to this big problem is the application of a sustainable development program where the participation of the people is an asset, what will produce a vibrant community able to transform positively the city and the country.
All right, now back to you. So what's your view of the chance of success? quite an heterogeneous voting with an average 5.5. You're quite consistent as an audience. So that's the Mexican project we have. This is a call that was made all over the world through all different means, social media, our website, and we got quite a number of responses, and that's what we are unfolding here with you. Next slide, please. So here is on impact on people's life. How do you see it? So as an audience, you're seeing the impact on people's life higher than the chances of success. So we need to work on making it successful so it can generate the desirable impact on people on the ground. All right. Couple of more votes and we'll move on. Thank you. You've been very consistent on your voting and you're voting quick. Next project, please. So this is a project called MADA Good. So mad for good. Let's see what this project is all about. Video, please.
Madrid, as one of Europe's largest capitals, faces many complex and interconnected challenges, including the environment, mobility and transport, health, security, economic development, and social cohesion. All of these urban problems impact the lives of its citizens and their overall satisfaction in a global way. This means that when we make decisions to try to fix one problem, we inevitably affect others. As citizens' quality of life must be the principal focus of any city, decision makers need a way to extract comprehensive insights from huge volumes of data and multiple sources of information in order to make informed decisions rather than relying on gut feeling. These decision-making processes can be greatly improved through the use of holistic and multidimensional analytical models. 21st century problems require 21st century solutions. This is why Mad for Good will use predictive analytics based on machine learning and artificial intelligence to build virtual models of core city themes. These models will be used to dynamically simulate the impact of possible city decisions on each individual theme as well as the interactions between them before taking action for tangible results. Mad for Good differentiates itself from previous European Union municipal projects in having a singular focus on the multiple dimensions of citizen well-being. The project also considers the multidirectional interactions between these dimensions. For example, the impact traffic restrictions in the Madrid city centre to reduce air contamination have on the local economy or on the number of serious respiratory problems reported by medical authorities. While it is impossible to optimize all dimensions simultaneously, the goal is to find an equilibrium point that optimizes the quality of people's lives. Mad for Good will use integrated multidimensional analytical models for more efficient, effective, and holistic decision-making based on evidence and insights within the public policy lifecycle process.
All right, this video went a little bit beyond the 30 seconds. Now your view. What are the chances of success of this project, in your view? So I see the shadow giving a trend on the higher side. I'm very pleased that you, as an audience, are reacting quickly, so we finished the poll quickly. Very quickly getting the 90 votes. As you continue voting, we go to the next slide. Impact on people's life. How do you see that? one more. All right. As you continue voting, we go for the last project. And that's an island model for resilience. So please, the video.
What's often seen as a barrier, which is Hawaii's geographic isolation and size, I would say is actually an asset, because you can really look at those ridge-to-reef solutions.
Through applying indigenous knowledge and Hawaiian cultural values to address catastrophic flooding and slow-moving water pollution problems, we can also create a vital, prosperous ahupua'a.
Hawaii is moving towards the balance, and when Hawaii achieves it, it becomes that starlight for the rest of the world to see and know that it can be done. That's the gift.
All right. Let's go to the next slide, and you're voting now. What's the chance of success of this project? Quite mixed voting. $69, $70, right? All right. As you continue voting, we move to the next slide and last question to you. And I promise you, I will put your mobile and your device to rest. Okay, next one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your engagement, for your opinion and your views on these 9 projects we share with you. And we hope to see you in Abu Dhabi in February 2020, where we will unfold our homework on reviewing further the projects and your suggestions for success and impact on people's lives. So have a good session, and bye-bye.
Claudio, before you leave, how are we going to know the results of this? Because you've said we will find out, we will inform. I mean, how are we going to know the results of this survey?
Okay.
And when?
Okay, so the result of survey that we did, you can, in the end of the poll, you can send to yourself. Just put your email there and you send the result of the poll. That's getting to know what's the assessment of that the audience here. So the way we're going to do, we're going to communicate through social media, we're going to use our website, we're going to use all our technological means to unfold our review after that, because we have to go back to the projects formulators, get more information, more details of the project, and then we will have a session which will be announced in the World Urban Forum, where we will review the results, and obviously using all the social media that we have associated with the World Urban Forum to share the results and make it public.
Thank you very much, Claudio. I think we'll put on some videos for you in just a second. Thank you. invite you to the stage, please. And please take your seats so that we receive the high-level delegates. Could you please take your seats, everybody? We can have the conversations later. Could you please take your seats, and the choir, please, to welcome our high-level guests. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll be receiving their Excellency any moment from now. And I request that once they get into our auditorium, we'll be upstanding, and it will be important that we applaud them. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may we be upstanding for His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya, the President of the Republic of Southern Sudan, General Salva Kiir, His Excellency Josiah, Republic of Fiji, and Dr. Mayen, Republic of Yemen. Let's appreciate them with a lot of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as they take their position kindly. Welcome, Your Excellencies. A more heartier clap for their Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. With your permission, Your Excellency, may we have our seats. Thank you so much. Let's applaud them. Your Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Your Excellency General Salva Kiir, President of the Republic of South Sudan, Your Excellency Josiah Bainimarama, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, Your Excellency Dr. Mayen Abdi Al-Malik, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Yemen, the President of the United Habitat Assembly, Madam Martha, the Executive Director, UN Habitat, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, allow me to invite Her Excellency, the President of the UN Habitat, to make a welcome remark.
Welcome, everyone. Distinguished President Uhuru Kenyatta, Distinguished President Salva Kiir Mayardit of South Sudan, Prime Minister Josiah Bainimarama, Madame Maimouna Mofti Sharif, Executive Director of UN Habitat, Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, I am honored to welcome you to the high-level segment of this first UN Habitat Assembly. Our future will be predominantly urban, affirmed the famous report from the Brundtland Commission more than 30 years ago. Well, we now are already in this future. Some of the opportunities it mentioned have already materialized, but many of the challenges that we are cautioned about have seriously exacerbated right now. 30 years may appear to be short span of time, but our ideas, practices, modes of production and consumption, demographic structures, as well as education and health conditions have positively changed. We do live today in a better world than 3 decades ago. Nonetheless, serious threats have emerged and could delay the progress achieved if we keep neglecting a wide range of concerns, from the way cities are conceived and planned to the protection of our environment, the imminence of climate change, and increasing social and economic inequalities. We must better. We must acknowledge that we live in a culture of short-term economic benefit, where unrestrained consumption and production practices have compromised the sustainability of the entire planet. Some worst scenarios are likely to come true, but also some of our dreams can give us a chance and guide us to a brighter future. The adoption of bold, new global agendas in the last decade has provided us with a vision for the people, the planet, and long-term prosperity. The endorsement of a new urban agenda by the international community as Habitat 3 laid out how our cities should be planned and managed to achieve sustainable development. This new agenda is about hope, guidance, and inspiration. It is our task from all of us to follow the correct path. In these years, the world has recognized the importance of space and territory and the integrative role they play. Cities can drive human progress, innovation, creativity, and greater societal advance and freedoms. There is an emerging consensus that urbanization is beneficial and can serve as a source of overall prosperity. However, we must be wary of the challenges such as increasing levels of inequality, exclusion, and marginalization. That is why we require a clear vision, strategic planning, effective institutional coordination, accountability, transparency, and above all, innovation is an essential ingredient to foster prosperous, inclusive cities. From technology to institutions, organizations, and modes of operation, to information and knowledge, to forms of participation and engagement, innovation unleashes the undeveloped potential and maximizes existing opportunities. Innovation, which is the matter of this first assembly, can come from a creative worker, a community leader, a business person, an artist, a public servant, or a scientist. It can solve problems, anticipate challenges, create new product and processes, and harness existing and emerging prospects. Successful cities in a globalized world are those that have been able to integrate innovation and nurture creativity into development sustainable agenda. But innovation should not remain in the realm of one sector, group, or specific area. We need to go to scale. The new urban agenda reminds us that it is possible to achieve a revolution of a small and big day-to-day transformation in our neighborhoods, communities, and cities. This requires adequate monitoring tools as UN Habitat Cities Prosperity Initiative and methodologies and approaches to design and implement integral transformative urban operations. The UN should take advantage of the momentum of their reform to innovate with a view to support countries in accelerating the implementation of the new urban agenda and the SDGs. But more importantly, we need to bring a global agenda closer to the citizens and engage with local stakeholders. Experience shows that much of the creativity and innovation occurs at the very local level, through everyday experiences and encounters. The importance and relevance of neighborhood context cannot be understood in the development of innovative ideas and relations. We need to think local at first step to get us closer to achieve our dreams and visions of a sustainable society. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, our First President, Your Excellency. With your gracious permission, allow me to invite the Executive Director, United Nations Human Settlement Program, UN Habitat, and Acting Director General, United Nations Office in Nairobi, to do the introduction of the theme of the Assembly. Welcome, Madam.
Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the report HSP/HA/1/6 explores the theme of the first session of the UN Habitat Assembly of Innovation for Better Quality of Life in Cities and Communities, with the sub-theme, Accelerated Implementation of the New Urban Agenda towards Achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The report presents basic facts and figures on innovation approaches to sustainable urban development and looks at promising practices with regards to innovation for sustainable cities and communities. Innovations as an institutional enabler and opportunities for expanding innovation in the work of UN Habitat. Finally, it proposes key issues for discussion today. Two questions that you may probably ask are, what is innovation in the context of the work of UN Habitat? And why do we care so much about it, and that we have made innovation as the central theme of our first UN Habitat Assembly? Innovations in the context of sustainable urban development is defined as the activities and processes of creating and implementing new knowledge and solutions to improve living conditions for all in cities and communities. Cities are the physical manifestation of history and culture, and incubators of innovation, industry, technology, entrepreneurship, and creativity. They drive national economies by creating prosperity, enhancing social development, and providing employment, but they can also breeding grounds of poverty, exclusion, and environmental degradation. Consequently, if the argument that the battle of achieving the sustainable development goals will be won or lost in cities is to be held true, cities will have to continue to drive innovation in the groundbreaking ways to achieve a lasting impact in communities and to ensure that no one is left behind as envisaged in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Excellencies, in introducing the theme of the first assembly, allow me to share one important message and invite you to reflect on 5 key questions. My message is about UN Habitat's unwavering commitment to innovate in everything we do, including the ways we partner. As I have mentioned on Monday and Tuesday, UN Habitat is repositioning as a major global entity, a center of excellence and innovation, as the thought leader and go-to agency that set the global discourse and agenda on sustainable urban development. Our ambition is to generate innovative, specialized, and cutting-edge knowledge. We will use spatial, economic, social, and environmental data to generate knowledge that will influence sustainable urban development policies and strategies at the national level and also at the local levels. Our approaches are based in years of experience, which have shown the prosperity and the sustainable transformation of cities and regions are driven by the ability of decision makers to understand and use data to guide policies and strategies. The investment of UN Habitats in innovative knowledge generation and management methodologies is grounded in the understanding that lasting impact in the life of peoples around the world can be achieved through the uptake by countries and cities of state-of-the-art norms, standards, guidelines in the area of sustainable urban development in response to the 2030 Agenda promise of leaving no one, no place behind. Innovations and contextual approaches that take into account local circumstances are fundamental to the interventions of UN Habitat. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the prosperity of cities and regions is not an accident. It comes from a clear vision and planning, leadership, effective institutional coordination, adequate implementation, and the measurement of results, as well as sustainable use of innovative and smart solutions. To effectively use innovation to improve quality of life in cities and communities and accelerate implementation of the new urban agenda and the sustainable development goals, a number of issues need to be considered at the global, national, and local level. For this reason, as we start this high-level strategic dialogue on the theme of the Assembly, I would like us to reflect on the following 5 questions. Question number 1, how can cities promote smart urban technologies that can handle the major system as cities requires? Water, transport, security, solid waste, green buildings, and clean energy to improve quality of life for all. What are the national requirements for countries to create an environment that encourages innovative solutions to issues of spatial inequality and poverty, prosperity of cities and regions, climate action, and crisis of urban setting? The third question, how should national institutions be reinforced so that they are better able to integrate new knowledge and solutions into the established systems in the community they serve? The fourth question, what could be the role of UN Habitat in engaging with actors in the smart cities field to ensure that the smart city vision becomes more inclusive towards a city vision that is compact, connected, and sustainable in also some livable cities? Question number 5, the last question, what role could UN Habitat play in assessing and advising on the innovation capacity of cities around the world? Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am looking forward to this fruitful and action-oriented debate. Thank you very much for your attention. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Habitat. Now, please allow me to invite to the stage to conduct the moderation of the high-level interactive strategic dialogue, a media personality internationally, who is also a driver of African and development conversations. Please welcome Ms. Julie Gishuru.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? We're doing good. Are we ready to talk? As they set up, and if you could just be on this side, please. Thank you very much. As they set up, let me just set the context for our discussion this morning. We want to understand the needs even as we look at innovation and how to best ensure that we are using innovative solutions for our challenges. We want to highlight best practices. We're looking into building environments for stronger, more effective partnership. We want to recognize the knowledge, the importance of knowledge, and how to ensure that we are working with local content, building skills, and much more. We want statements of political commitment and calls to action. That's what we hope to achieve in our panel session this morning. Thank you. Your Excellencies, it's a pleasure to be here with you all and to go straight into this conversation. I will start with President Uhuru Kenyatta. Kenya, of course, has set its Big Four agenda, and affordable housing is one of the four. Maybe as we look at innovation and the importance of being able to build innovation into our systems, one of the things we heard at the opening is we must do better, we must do more. We've heard that we will not succeed by chance, it has to be by design. What do you see in terms of plugging innovation into the Big Four? How can it work for us? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Julie. Let me begin by saying it's a pleasure to join my colleagues in this panel as we discuss an issue that is going to be critical to the future of virtually every nation on the globe. For us in Kenya, the provision of affordable housing is a right that is enshrined in our current 2010 Constitution. A right that is also in our SDG 11 that we have all sanctioned and approved. But ultimately, it's a right, especially in a growing, urbanized world, that is going to be a massive challenge for many of us, especially in the developing world, to achieve. That said, it is therefore important for us to look at alternative, new and innovative ways of actually achieving this objective. The traditional manner in which we have focused and moved on with shelter is not able to keep pace with a growing demand of a growing young population. So we ourselves are keenly focused on looking at to how we can change the manner in which we provide this housing. And this goes all the way from the supply of materials, to the type of houses that we build, to where we build, to how green can we make this housing, but also to new and innovative ways of financing housing. How can we make housing more affordable and available? How can we attract, because we also recognize that governments alone are not in a position to provide all the number of units that are required by our population. How can we find new and innovative ways of involving the private sector to support us in this development? So these are some of the things that we're currently looking at. And our target right now is to see if we can provide 500,000 new units, which for Kenya is going to be a major milestone, because our demand right now is almost 200,000 units a year, and we have a huge and massive backlog. That we can't do without partnering, like I said, with private sector, without finding new and innovative ways of reducing costs of construction, how to supply materials, how to engage financiers in terms of giving longer-term mortgages that people can afford. So these are some of the challenges that are there, and like I'm saying, we're not going to be able to do it if we focus ourselves on the traditional methods. We need to look into the future, the use of technology, in order to help us achieve the objective of providing our people with affordable housing
Thank you for that, and we'll come back to private sector in a short while. President Kiir, let me come to you now and your perspective from South Sudan. Your country is, of course, the youngest state in the world, and you are experiencing urbanization at what I would describe as unprecedented levels. It is happening, it's happening very fast. Of course, there are also challenges, and in your own environment, of course, conflict is one of those. The question, therefore, is how do we focus on urbanization, on delivering the sustainable development goals, and what support do you need in order to implement the new urban agenda in South Sudan? What's your message to stakeholders here, please, sir?
Well, thank you very much, and I'm happy to be with you in this gathering. As you have correctly said that South Sudan is the youngest nation in the world, we are in need of many things. Everything that you can mention. There are so many challenges that there is a conflict as we speak, and we have just signed a peace agreement, a revitalized peace agreement, and this peace agreement needs to be implemented. And if it is implemented, it will pave the way for all the needs of the people of South Sudan to be required. Because when we talk about housing, there is no housing in South Sudan. But the Minister of Land and Housing is ready to work with any other partners to afford the population to get housing. The second thing is that all the infrastructure in the country is not there. Because South Sudan, when people talk about independence, those who were getting independence from reasonable people found some infrastructure. In South Sudan, we started from the scratch. There was nothing. And so when you talk about infrastructure, there is nothing in South Sudan. This is a demand that we must have put the infrastructure in place. And we cannot do it alone without partners. We also have this, if this habitat is now established in South Sudan, the urbanization of the towns and the people themselves can be a project that can employ the youth. That youth, we have, the youngest population in our country are the majority, and they are unemployed. If we get such an opportunity, this is where the youth will fit in and they will benefit from being employed and from the infrastructure itself. I believe that if the international community wants to help the youngest member of the community, it is South Sudan where they should concentrate on. And with the development, nobody will think about the war. War can be brought in because of uneven development. When there is no development, there are no jobs. And when there are no jobs, the youth will do nothing but to think of what to engage themselves in, which is war. And I believe if you would want to help South Sudan, this is where you come in.
Thank you. Thank you. The importance of development also for peace and stability. And the challenge is immense, but perhaps this is also an incredible opportunity to build well-planned cities in an environment where we're told there is simply no infrastructure right now. Perhaps we should look at this as a huge opportunity. Prime Minister Bainimarama, let me come to you next and the Fiji perspective on this. And I had the pleasure to listen to you yesterday at the lunch for participatory slum upgrading, the project that UN Habitat runs with ACP. And you said it's not just about housing and roads. It's also about much more. It's about culture change. It's about mindset change. And I do believe that innovation is an intersection between thought and creativity and action. I want you to share with us how Fiji is incorporating innovation in its solutions and your suggestions in moving forward. Please, sir.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for that. I made a statement yesterday with regards to our informal settlements and in relation to the effects of climate change. But I've made the long journey here to Nairobi because I'm taking every opportunity possible to stress the urgency of this climate crisis to the world and to call loudly and relentlessly for concerted and ambitious global action to address the unprecedented scale of this threat. I was fortunate yesterday to be shown a housing project that is one of His Excellencies, the President's agenda to build 500,000 homes in 5 years. I was fortunate to see that, and I expect that at the first ever UN Habitat Assembly, we will hear some remarkable new solutions that nations can implement to shield their citizens from the ravages of our changing climate. In Fiji, like many other vulnerable nations, we're innovating every day to protect our people and our progress from climate-related crisis. Because it's, if we don't contain this global warming, it'll be a catastrophe. It's a world catastrophe. So it's already, people say it's already 1 degree, and we need to contain it at least 1.5, not moving to 2 degrees. But we are fortunate this morning that we have national leaders here, the Excellencies, the Presidents, because more than anything else, we need political will for this, for the change in direction. Without political will, without the will of the national leaders, we will not be able to contain this global warming that we've been talking about, and it'll turn into catastrophe. But we're equally proud at home at what we're doing. As you know, we've finished our term as presidents of COP23, but we are still in the fight because we need everyone to be in this fight, in this global war against climate change. But we're equally proud of what we're doing at home to walk the talk, so to speak, in setting an example, and the rest of the world can follow. As I mentioned in my introductory remarks yesterday, Fiji is one of the 2 countries in the world alongside the Marshall Islands to take concrete steps to the path of raising the ambition of national determined contribution, the NDCs, which is very important. Obviously, Fiji, like the Marshall Islands and the small island nation states in the Pacific, we are not major carbon emitters. But we want to show the world that we can do it, and so can other nations. If we and the Marshall Islands can do that, I'm sure the rest of the world can follow and commit themselves to this. The majority priority for Fiji, of course, is the depletion. The arrival of Cyclone Winston, as I mentioned yesterday in my speech, the strongest cyclone ever to make landfall in the southern hemisphere, exposed deep vulnerabilities across our economy, bringing a total damage bill of about $1.4 billion. That's 1/3 of our GDP. But since that time, we've mainstreamed climate change into all of our national decision-making. Following the launch of our 5-year and 20-year National Development Plan in 2017, the Fijian government has since launched the National Adaptation Plan, the Climate Vulnerability Assessment, and the planned relocation guidelines to guide our climate adaptation planning. To help fund our efforts to build resilience across our economy, we've instituted an Environment and Climate Adaptation Levy, what we call ECAL, to mobilize domestic finances towards climate adaptation and environmental conservation. ECAL funds are building more resilient schools. We're building them better after the catastrophe brought about by Winston. We're building more resilient schools and infrastructure, relocating communities, and of course, reducing our carbon footprint through the uptake of solar projects. We're going even further to enhance community-level actions in response to climate change, in particular by allocating a percentage of ECAL proceeds into a climate change relocation trust fund to help crowd in bilateral and multilateral donor funding to relocate low-lying vulnerable coastal communities and, of course, our informal settlers and settlements. You will have heard that in Fiji, we've created a green bond, a modest $50 million bond that was launched in October 2017 and listed, of course, on the London Stock Exchange. We were the first emerging country to launch a sovereign green bond and the third to do so at all, following, of course, Poland and France. Projects financed from the Fiji Green Bond will focus primarily on investments that build resilience against the impacts of climate change, including our informal settlers, including our community climate adaptation projects. Fiji will also use bond proceeds towards achieving our current NDC target, which is the 30% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions in the energy sector by 2030. Some of you may have heard that the Fijian government and UN Habitat have been successful in securing funding from the Depletion Fund to implement a series of resilient projects in more than 15 Fijian urban informal settlements, most vulnerable to climate change. From housing to infrastructure to the natural environment to livelihoods, this project will involve women, young people, Fijians living with disabilities, and the elderly to build community-wide resilience to climate impacts.
Thank you.
Creating solutions we can implement on a nationwide scale in the years ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Can we give Fiji a round of applause, because that was a really comprehensive list of things. And what's most impressive, perhaps, is, number one, thank you for shining a light on the climate crisis. But number two, the ability to take a challenge and turn that around is very powerful, and to use innovation to do that is very powerful. Thank you for setting that example. I now come to the Yemen experience, and Prime Minister Abdul, Malik, Saeed, perhaps you can take us through the context in Yemen, and as we look at the question of how countries can create an environment that encourages innovation, what are you doing in that regard? Thank you.
سأتحدث عن ذلك باللغة العربية إذا كان بالإمكان وضع الترجمة.
I shall speak in English. I shall speak in Arabic. So, if possible, you can put on your headsets. Okay.
Give me a minute. I'm just going to tap into our two ladies. And I love that we have quite a few ladies on our panel, and one is indeed a president as well. We've heard the comments so far. Maybe you could just tap in to your thoughts as you've heard the president speak about the context in their respective countries. And I'll begin with you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Well, we are addressing a very important matter, which is we are at a multilateral institution right now. The UN Habitat has raised awareness on the importance of the local governance leadership. And right now, on the governance that we are building up at the UN, the local governments are taking the lead on some issues which are important for the international community. So this leadership has been shown as policies to get, for example, sustainable development in place, but also to reach development in urban communities, which sometimes are not really well taken into account by the federal government. So as much as we are right now in a multilateral institution, which is composed by national states, it is very interesting how the leadership of mayors and subnational governors is really getting the lead on the decision-making on how communities can be better planned, well-planned, and happier. In the inauguration of the assembly was very smart to invite a mayor and governor who undertake the challenge of getting a happier community in his city and his state. And he was very inspiring. He inspired us about the importance of thinking on people and with people and building up with the community consensus, the policies that we are implementing for a better life, and also the investments will be guided by those citizens. So this is the heart and the core of the discussion right now, and it is very inspiring to hear presidents of countries talking about this matter with such a commitment and knowledge.
Thank you very much. Executive Director Maimouna, I'll come quickly to you as we need two more here on this side, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for the commitment to the sustainable development. I think that is, for example, that from the President, Excellencies Kenyatta mentioned about the affordable housings and finance. I think this is the very relevant to the theme of UN Habitat Assembly today, because we are talking about innovation, we are talking about partnership. We're talking about partnership not only with private sector, it's also with the different level of stakeholders. I think this is the opportunity for the Excellencies and the audience to pick up these opportunities, as what as the President of the South Sudan, Excellencies, you mentioned about the infrastructure is needed in South Sudan, and the needs of the housing and also the youth development. I think this is also very true. This is an opportunity for us because by 2050, 75% of the infrastructure was not built yet. I think this is also include data from South Sudan that is mentioned by the President just now. And 60% of this will be in private sector. And UN Habitat is in our strategic plan. We are also having the four domains, and one of it is in terms of the providing, reducing poverty and also providing infrastructure. I think I'm taking notes, then after this how we can work and collaborate together with South Sudan. And as far as Fiji, thank you very much, Excellencies, for your for the climate change champion. You know, that is in terms of the climate change adaptation that you take. But I think, as you mentioned about the collaboration with the UN Habitat, we are here more, and because we are also talking about climate change and towards the infrastructure, location and cities, and where the needs of the localization of the new urban agenda and the SDG involving local government, involving all sectors is very important. And I think you already seen the fruits in Fiji, our collaboration between Fijian government and also the UN Habitat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Maimouna. Thank you for your indulgence, Your Excellency. Please go ahead. Thank you very much.
عندما نتحدث عن التحديات التي تواجه.
Thank you. And when we talk about the challenges that we face in terms of the implementation of the new urban agenda, in Yemen we speak about a multiplication of challenges. So towns and cities that have more than 50% of our population in Yemen involve waste management, pollution, social services, health services. And when we talk about countries in conflict, we talk about even greater complications and challenges. So how can we face up to all this? Well, with innovation, with progress. And we can start to improve our services in towns and cities through this. And this is a component that we will focus on after talking about the challenges themselves. So Yemen is currently experiencing a situation that many countries are going through in the region. In Iraq, for example, in the city of Mosul, Aleppo in Syria, large cities, but also smaller cities and towns and countries of the region, the same thing has happened in Yemen. I'm going to talk about an experience we went through as a government. In a certain number of our cities and towns, we saw conflict with armed extremist groups. And these towns and cities used to be pillars of economic and social activity in the country. Each one of these was based on commercial and economic activity. If this is lost, then you lose universities, you lose industry, you lose the inhabitants due to the displacement of persons within the country. Because cities are not built for conflict. We have more than 3 million internal displaced persons in the Yemen now. A city has gone from 7 down to 1 million inhabitants now. Our country was not ready to receive these refugees and internally displaced persons. So there's been an extraordinary demographic change in our country within towns and cities, because we weren't quite prepared for all of this, and this is an additional complication challenge for governments in times of conflict. And this gives rise to certain issues. Certain universities and academic institutions. We know that in the Yemen, these took time to build up their campuses. But this exodus within our country has meant that increasingly a lot of experience was lost. There is another issue with regards to the weakness of central authorities. This is a source of support for local authorities. But there's an issue when you have a monopoly of centralized authorities in giving out these essential services: electricity, communications, hygiene. All of these are under the monopoly of a centralized state. And you have to consider, you have to integrate the private sector with all these challenges. But in the Yemen, we've had great changes over the past years, between 2000 and 2007, in the field of communications. We were one of the best countries in the region in this field. But progress was then very slow, and that held us back. We then had to tackle conflict. We had to move our capital to another provisional capital. And we had to see how we could continue progressing in terms of technology. Well, what we did was make sure that technology would be cheaper. And we did this in various fields in the country. In the banking sector, for example, no country can work without banks, without other services such as electricity, and without a telecommunications industry which is of high quality. But we had a great many challenges to face. We did have a very highly developed fiber-optic network, but during the past few years, the conflict has really held us back with regards to all of this. It's been very difficult to extend this fiber-optic network to households during the conflict, but we're thinking now about how we can implement networks which are based on real economies within our changed cities and towns. So innovation and technology can allow us to overcome a certain number of issues and difficulties. Another example would be the use of electronic transactions within countries such as Somalia and other countries going through conflict. You can compare this with countries that have had e-governance for a long time, such as Switzerland or other European countries. Most people in the EU, Switzerland, the USA have credit cards, have bank accounts, and this issue of online financial transactions is no longer an issue because identity is defined in a biometric and digital manner. But in a certain number of countries, telecommunications and technology can be a limiting factor for people. It can impede people from reaching banks and impedes Yemeni towns and cities from also achieving the development that they're striving for. Thank you.
Very much, Prime Minister, for that. And I think, you know, you've really opened up our eyes to the dual challenge presented by conflict. You told us cities are not built for conflict, and what happens in conflict is tragic. You see a movement of people, you also see depletion of the infrastructure. But the other challenge is then we have cities coming up overnight. So you have 500,000, 1, 2, 3 million people, and you've got to find a way to serve them. These are cities. And I think it's really critical that as we look at this question, that we don't forget what is happening in terms of the refugee crisis in the world. I think next, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to move to the question of the importance of private sector as a partner in driving innovation. So President Kenyatta, I come back to you now. Private sector is an interesting animal. It will move forward, but carefully. It doesn't like risk. It likes certainty, you know. How do you work, or how are you proposing to work effectively, more effectively with private sector to ensure they participate as required in building the innovative systems that are required to transform our realities around housing, please?
Julie, like I said when we started, there is no way we will be able to achieve our objective of giving adequate, affordable housing to our people as governments alone. We have to partner, we have to join hands together with private sector. Again, as you have said, private sector is cautious. So the first thing we have to be able to do is to create an enabling environment for them to thrive. We need to be able to ensure that the right policies, that the right frameworks are in place to encourage a private sector. For example, in Kenya, just a few weeks ago, one of the big problems and challenges that we have is mortgages because of lack of long-term money. So working together with our development partners, we have established a mortgage refinance scheme that is aimed at encouraging banks to give longer term and therefore cheaper mortgages to our people. Ultimately, we're also now looking at working with private sector to develop infrastructure by providing them with the land, providing them with the necessary infrastructure, and the guarantees that they require. So we try to backstop, especially the low-income earners, by guaranteeing that we will uptake those properties, thereby they develop, we will uptake those properties, while at the same time creating and putting in place measures that enable, especially our low-income people, to be able to access some of these facilities. We're also looking at encouraging the development also of the inputs, you know, cement, steel, new innovations. Where can we give necessary tax breaks so that we become attractive and they are able to increase and to expand their production of all these inputs that are required to go into the housing sector. So that again is another area that we must focus so that we are encouraging at the same time for them to invest and to those who have invested to expand their investment. Lastly, we're also saying that we also want our small and medium enterprises not to be left out. For example, in all the government schemes that we're now doing, we're saying that in order for us to guarantee and to say that we're participating with private sector, we want a certain portion of construction material to be reserved for these small and medium enterprises. For example, doors, windows, cupboards, and things that they can make. So they are also part and parcel of the process, because ultimately they will be the homeowners themselves. That is the group that we are targeting. So let them be involved. Let them create the income that will also enable them ultimately to also become homeowners. So that partnership between big industry, small and medium enterprise must also be encouraged, so that we're not leaving anyone behind. So ultimately, private sector, government, within private sector, large and small, create a facilitating, enabling environment for them to become active partners in helping us achieve our objective of housing.
Thank you. Thank you for taking us through that. President Kiir, I come to you now, and of course you gave us the unique situation in South Sudan. And I've explained and we've talked about the fact that private sector, as President Kenyatta puts it very, very diplomatically, is cautious. He's very cautious. How do we encourage and perhaps provide de-risking mechanisms? What is it you would say to private sector to encourage them to really look at South Sudan as a viable opportunity for them to come in and to create change? Please, President Kiir.
Well, private sector in South Sudan is still very weak, given the situation that they were in. There were no businesses in South Sudan. At the moment, very, very few are trying to come up with the idea of how to build the private sector. In South Sudan, there were no banks. It is now the banks from Kenya that have established their branches in South Sudan. And they still need the capital. Otherwise, they have no money to give loans to the citizens that can start a small business. This is, on one side, it is a problem. The second is that the issue of land. And in South Sudan, we don't have a problem of land. We have land, but we have no people. And so the current land laws have given the citizens the right to own the land. And so by owning the land, even when the investors come, they have to go and negotiate with the landowners so that they get the land for any investment that they want to make. This is a problem that we are struggling with. We would want to expose our business people to other multi-billionaires people so that they can get loans. The only export that we have in South Sudan is oil, and that nobody can depend on it surely. It is when there are farmers that want to invest in South Sudan so that they produce whatever crops they want to produce. This is when the private sector will actually come up. Otherwise, private sector in South Sudan is still very, very weak and very low at the level.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I like to look at the bright side of things. So I'm going to congratulate the banks from Kenya that have gone into South Sudan in spite of the challenges. That's Pan-Africanism, and that's seeing the opportunity, and maybe we can encourage others. Perhaps there is need for stakeholders engagement with private sector to be able to ensure we can encourage and give them the information they need and provide the de-risking and the guarantees to take them into spaces like South Sudan. I know that UNHCR is doing some very interesting things around piloting Kalobeye, which is an integrated settlement for refugees and host communities in Turkana, yes. And a lot is going on to drive the private sector to invest in Kalobeye. So there could be models we could take from that. Prime Minister Bainimarama, let me come back to you now. And when we talk about enhancing private sector partnerships, what has Fiji been doing and what has been working in your space?
Thank you. I concur with His Excellency the President's comment that private partnership is a must in these solutions that we're looking for. I know everyone knows that when the United States of America pulled out of the Paris Agreement, everyone was disappointed. But out of that, if you remember, a coalition was created, a coalition of non-state actors, NGOs, especially the private sector, put together by my friend Arnold Schwarzenegger. That has moved forward in a very positive way to fight the climate change crisis that we have. But driving these solutions forward requires access to new financing mechanism, partnerships with the private sector, and access to relevant expertise and new technologies. And all-encompassing crisis can only be overcome if communities and institutions do their part. As His Excellency the President has said, governments certainly must lead and set the standard. They must do those things that only governments are equipped to do through laws, regulations, education policies and programs. But government action is not enough. Business, development partners, development organizations, communities, and civil society must take the initiative to push their governments. The world's financial institution, the public, private, and international institutions must work with governments to develop those financing mechanisms. But I think we should be clear. Let's be clear, in the face of worsening climate impacts, adaptation efforts alone won't save us. Without decisive cuts in carbon emissions, the present climate crisis will intensify into unchecked crisis. And this is what I've been saying all along. And everybody has, of course. Thank you.
Thank you for being a champion again. Let me come to you, Prime Minister Saeed. You took us through the challenges. How are you encouraging private sector to engage in your space? What are you doing?
هذا تحدي كبير.
Well, this is also a considerable challenge, even under normal circumstances. As you can imagine, in times of conflict or war, it's even more difficult. Before the start of the war in 2014, we already had a debate on legislation, on legal frameworks. And the courts and tribunals which we were going to work on in order to mobilize the private sector. In particular, want to do this on issues of urban planning. This is not just an issue of economic development, it's an issue of sustainable development, which is equitably distributed over the territory and for the entire population. So it's even more difficult in times of war. We need to ensure that there are safeguards and guarantees. Since I've taken up the office of Prime Minister, one of the issues I've focused on is how the private sector can contribute to helping us produce energy, electricity. This also applies to water pumping stations within towns and cities, or renewable energy resources. So there's an even greater debate when it comes to cities in mountainous regions. So it's even more difficult for that kind of energy to reach those towns and cities. Often people in our country have to buy solar power panels. But this could be contributed to through interactions with private society. This doesn't necessarily have to come through the states, but through private companies. So by doing this, we've been offered greater flexibility to have greater production and more guarantees in terms of energy production. In times of war, many businessmen and banks speak even more about guarantees and safeguards, though. In this area, we have frameworks coming from the World Bank. We have guarantees for investors, though, who are coming in from the outside, but not for Yemeni businessmen investing in Yemen. And that's an issue. Many people in Yemen want to invest in their own country to rise, to ensure that our country can rise and emerge from war. But there's many barriers to them doing so, and this is reflected in costs. If we have one energy production facility which is producing a certain amount and for a certain cost in normal times, but raises their costs in times of war, then that places an additional burden on our people and on the economy of our country. When it comes to urban planning and housing, we need hundreds of thousands of new housing units in certain countries. So we're striving to find real partnerships when it comes to land, when it comes to water, and banking systems for construction. This is also very important. Energy production also fits in here. So we really rely on the private sector to produce energy and electricity, which is vital for the development of towns and cities. So at the moment, we're trying to look at what should come first. Should it be infrastructure? Should it be investment? We think that infrastructure in our country is still quite weak, and we need additional investment, in particular in industrial areas. And in terms of the commercialization of energy, to shift this towards the private sector. But we don't want this to wait for the infrastructure to be in place, because we want our development of the economy to be driven forwards now. Thank you.
For that, thank you. Just waiting for the translator to wind up. Maimuna, let me come to you now. And, you know, UN Habitat is working with a lot of private sector partners. We'd like to just understand and tap into what has worked really well. Microsoft, for instance, is engaging in a new way, and I think things are evolving. What for you is really effective right now?
Thank you very much, Julie. I'm very happy to listen to our four leaders up here, that they are a very good leadership and they have a vision and open up for the private sector to come and willing to give the enabling environment. And for UN Habitat, we have been working with the national government, regional government, local government, with stakeholders, and also with private sectors in dealing with urban solution and urban to reduce or mitigate or even trying to solve urban challenges, as what been mentioned by our four leaders just now. But for example, when we work very closely with providing the infrastructure like public spaces, we work very close with Microsoft when we have the including input in terms of the technology and innovation using Minecraft to link to the youth and to the people, the young people, how they want to foresee their cities and their urban spaces.
Is that Minecraft the game?
Yes,
so
it's a
for
game.
For those
it's
who
a computer
don't know,
game.
It is, yes, it's an online, it's a game.
Yes,
It's
yes.
a game which young people are crazy about. Okay.
Yeah, and they use not only games like virtual games, but it's the real example, how they can design their own public spaces from their own needs. So I think these are a few cases already it's already implemented, and I think this is very, very important. And we also have the program together with private sectors on controlling for pollution, air pollutions, and how we can look into the degree of air pollution in that area. This is also one innovation that's in. And talking about a crisis in the urban areas, we work very closely with the private sectors and looking at the giving the normative part of our work, not only on operational but on normative work part of our work, giving the guidelines and the tools, and we are also recently completed and approved by the our Secretary General guidance on the urban crisis. And as you mentioned clearly that we work together with UNHCR in Colombia and Turkana, and how we integrate refugee together with the host, and we on UN Habitat working together with our UNHCR and also our UNDP, giving the planning and design for the resettlement areas in a way that this is our niche. We are implementing, I think that example is one UN, as what is been putting up by our Secretary General reform. And other than that, I'm also very important to say that the spatial planning by our Prime Minister from Yemen, talking about spatial planning and urban services. And for UN Habitat, we has the convener. Convener we can link to vertically to the governments, and also to the local government, and also to the people. And we can become the advocates, and we also can be a convener to prepare the concept, also the bankable project, and working together with our private sectors such as banks and also the World Bank and other private sectors. This is our part that we can collaborate and partners with all the member states and the 4 leaders up here that we already mentioned about their challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Those roles are absolutely critical because somebody needs to help us bring the ecosystem together. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. I keep telling my youngest son to stop playing Minecraft. I didn't realize perhaps it's helping him build his planning skills. So maybe I should stop harassing him. I'll come to you now, Madam President, and your thoughts very quickly on the issue of private sector and how better to engage. Maybe from hearing from the presidents, what's top of mind for you?
Thank you. I would like to comment on an opportunity for private sector right now on cities is that exponential technologies are placing the private sector in a very good position, and a privileged one, in order to provide cheap and efficient services for society. And innovation is about how to use these exponential technologies and providing good services for people. But there are 3 things that we have to be aware of the participation of private sector in the urban development, which are first to avoid the bad environmental, social externalities, or unsocializing sometimes the effects of, for example, pollution or some services that are not well provided. The authorities are placed also for that, for controlling that bad externalities that we have to take and to assess. And the second thing that I think that is important to mention is that sometimes private sector is banned because in a lot of countries we have a lot of corruption and lack of transparency. So we have to put this matter of avoiding corruption and make good bids and good offers and transparent, accountable offers for private sector to participate on social and community development in a way that it is legal and it is given good services, but also in legally and controlled by the government.
Thank you so much for that. So we're coming to the close of the panel session, and just in less than 1 minute, I'd like each of our panelists to renew your political commitment here in front of this gathering and millions of others who are joining us on social media around the world. Renew your political commitment, tell us your thoughts, but also maybe issue a call to action to the partners that you are most keen to engage with, to work with, the ones you really want at the table seated with you. President Kenyatta, I'll come to you last because you are the host country. So President Kiir, perhaps I will begin with you. What is your political commitment on the issue of our cities, sustainable cities, ensuring that people are safe, ensuring that they are inclusive? And who would you like to really speak to and challenge to be part of the journey moving forward?
Well, we are committed to this program because it is something to do with the people. And the government of South Sudan is highly committed, and it is in this respect that the government of South Sudan commits herself to clear whatever voluntary, non-earmarked arrears, and has now committed herself to earmark a contribution of $40,000 US for this project. And so the commitment of the government of South Sudan to this UN Habitat program is great, and we are going to work seriously to make sure that the achievements are seen by the end of the day. So,
thank you.
I have to give you my assurances that we are committed to this.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you for that. Let me come now to Prime Minister of Fiji, Bainimarama, please. Your political commitment and maybe your call to action.
Thank you, Julie. As I mentioned earlier on, Fiji is one of the first 2 countries in the world, besides Marshall Islands, to take concrete steps on the path of raising the ambition of nationally determined contributions, the NDCs. Obviously, Fiji is not as I said, Fiji is not a major carbon emitter, but we want to show the world that we can do it, so can other nations, especially the bigger, the larger economies. The struggle to secure food and water could potentially drive nations head-on into war. Vast numbers of climate-displaced peoples would require refuge, adding immense complexity and urgency to the issues highlighted at this assembly. And as I speak to you now, that is the future we are headed for, based on our collective commitment under the Paris Agreement. A nightmare scenario, Julie, of 3 degrees of warming. So I'm here in Nairobi, sounding the alarm to urge for more decisive action. By the time we gather at the UN Secretary General Summit in September, the majority of the world's countries must come with realistic and concrete plans for 3 things: for their next round of more robust and aggressive NDCs, for having emissions by 2030, and for reaching net zero emissions by 2050. Fiji is already revising our own commitments in line with those aspirations, and we ask the rest of the world to follow. And when you come to, of course, when you come to New York, we want to limit the people that come there, not with rhetorics, but those that have done something.
Come with action.
Come with action. Thank you.
Thank you for sounding the alarm, and please don't stop. Please don't stop.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Saeed. Thank you.
توجهات الوطنية الآن.
Now, national policies in Yemen right now, and this is a commitment of our government, are things that we're going to focus on. And we believe that all the plans that are drawn up are plans which will not lead to a growth of emissions. Yemen, after all, is one of the least polluting states. We're currently considering renewable energy. Of course, we have a civilizational heritage, part of mankind's heritage, something we need to preserve. We back modern urbanization without, however, undermining the very identity of these cities. These cities possess identities. None of these cities are the same. They're all different. Today, we do find ourselves in a situation of war. But despite this, we have devoted 20% of the income drawn from the sale of gas and oil towards local development. This has always been the case, of course, for projects in the past. But the money was not always there. But now we have a number of provinces, a number of states, who are updating their urban plans and urbanization plans to ensure that it is in keeping with the new urban agenda. Despite the difficult conditions, we haven't waited for the assistance of the international community. No, we started in our own modest way. For example, energy derived from oil and gas covers about 20%, or rather the money derived from it, 20% of it is devoted to the urban development of cities. And we will see the results of this in a few years' time. Yes, some of the cities are suffering from a situation of war, but we always enjoy opportunities to keep building. These are the challenges we're facing today, and this perhaps could inspire other countries who are emerging from war and conflict.
Thank you very much for that. Maimuna, let me come to you next. What's your commitment as a key implementing partner, as somebody who has said you're going to take on multiple roles to make the reality, to bring the vision to reality for our cities? What's your commitment, and maybe what's your call as well?
Thank you very much, Juliet. UN Habitat is known as the global leaders on urbanization and human settlement. We put forward our strategic plan for 2020 to 2025 before the Habitat Assembly for approval. We committed to implement the 4 pillars and the 12 outcomes. And we are here to serve the member state. We are here to work together with the private sector. We are here to work together with all levels of government. We are the United Nations International Civil Servant, and we are here to be committed to work together with all the member states and the excellencies to make our vision and together to provide a better quality of life for people, of course, for all in the urbanizing world. And again, I would like to say thank you to all the member states and the excellencies and the leaders who are committed. I'm very, very happy to hear the commitment. And now I think let's work and let's talk and more action. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Madam President, your commitment, your call to action.
Thank you very much. Last word is just to encourage everybody to support multilateral institutions. We are in a very difficult situation right now with multilateralism, and we are not going to thrive without cooperation. So cooperation is about getting together all the member states and cities and reaching out how to solve problems in a collective intelligence way. So multilateral institutions as UN Habitat and UN Environment and the other institutions of the agencies of the UN are ready to work with states in order to succeed, and this is a call for the states to support multilateral institutions.
Thank you very much for that. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has the final word.
Thank you very much, Julie. I think first is to renew our commitment, as our brother from Fiji has said, to the issue of our climate change agenda, which is essential for us to be able to have a planet that we can actually all live on. So Kenya renews her commitment to the climate change agenda, and we will continue to pursue, together with our colleagues around the globe to ensure that we have the right environment for our people to live in. I think the second is a new, renewed commitment to our private sector partners, who we have said are essential for us to be able to achieve our objective. And we want to create an environment where you can thrive, where you can invest in an open, transparent Kenyan society, because those are critical ingredients for the partners who we seek in the private sector. I think the third is, once again, as Madam President, you have said, to renew once again our commitment to multilateralism and to multilateral institutions such as UN Habitat. And as we participated, first and foremost, as host country with UN Habitat to co-host this with a contribution of $500,000. We have also as our commitment to UN Habitat, increased our earmark contributions from $70,000 to $100,000, and non-earmarked, we have made a pledge of an additional $100,000, and mine is to really call on all our partners, on all nations, to recognize the importance of the urbanization agenda, to recognize the importance of being able to have sustainable communities for our children and for our children's children, and for us to recognize that we cannot do this alone. We need each other, and we must work together. Let us work in solidarity to achieve these noble goals that we all agreed to under the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've been blessed to have an incredibly diverse panel in terms of experiences and realities on the ground. We've learned a lot. Sometimes the challenges seem immense, but let me use the words of the late Nelson Mandela, who said, "It always seems impossible until it is done." Until it is done. That's the quote. Thank you very much. Before we close, can I just say to our panelists, right here, oh, thank you, President Kiir, I'm dropping everything. Right here on the side of the stage, we have some graffiti. And this work has been done by some young people who are part of the activities of UN Habitat. And they're all girls, I believe. Ladies, where are you? Could you wave? Please stand up and wave. And perhaps you'll get an opportunity to come forward and just greet the presidents, because we're going to ask each of the presidents to come forward and sign this graffiti and take a picture together there in front of the graffiti. Young people, of course, are a key part of our change agenda. President Salva Kiir, can I ask you to come down, please, and sign? Thank you very much, sir. And you will be followed by President Uhuru Kenyatta, Prime Minister as well, Saeed, thank you, and Bainimarama as well. Thank you. If we would come down, and they have marker pens for you. And the fact that this was done by girls is not to say we don't do things with boys, right? We have boys' activities as well. Very good. And now President Salva Kiir is just about to sign. He is signing the graffiti work. Can we give him a round of applause as he puts his signature on this piece of work? And next, President Uhuru Kenyatta moves forward. And he's going to sign on a cloud. There we go. He is signing. Thank you very much. Next. Oh, thank you. Prime Minister Bainimarama of Fiji goes forward, signing also on a cloud. Wonderful. And he says, "God bless." Thank you. A message of blessing there. And Prime Minister Saeed of Yemen signing on a cloud as well. There we go. Thank you very, very much. A warm round of applause. And can we take a picture, please? If we could all position ourselves, I will ask the executive director to join them and the president of the assembly as well to join them for a picture. With the graffiti artists as well. Wonderful. That's beautiful. And I love to do this. It's the way I celebrate. It's the way we celebrate in Africa. Our moment. That's what it is. A big round of applause. Thank you very much.
So much. We've come to the closure of our program. Our request all of us will be upstanding as the Excellencies, the President and the Excellencies, the Prime Ministers, take their leave. May you all be upstanding and calm as you give them room and space for them to leave. We are the one. Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, the Presidents, and Your Excellency, the Prime Ministers. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation for attending the high-level segment of the first session of United Nations Habitat Assembly. Let's appreciate their Excellencies as they take their leave, ladies and gentlemen. Asante sana.